Hey, everybody, Max Boltman here alongside Shayna Goldman for another episode of the Athletic Hockey Show. And Shayna, we had a loaded playoff slate last night. Philadelphia Flyers eliminate the Pittsburgh Penguins in what was a fantastic game. Cam York with the OT winner. I have to say, for long stretches of that game, it was reeking of this is going to game seven. And the Penguins, I felt like put an onslaught on Dan Vladar, but he holds strong. I mean, that is maybe the best goaltending performance of these playoffs so far, single game.
It might be, right? Because the Penguins definitely had their chances in this, and it did feel like not only were they getting some really in tight looks, but the pressure of the situation too, right? Because as much as the Flyers had the advantage coming into this game, they could send the Penguins out of this at any point. It did feel like if this goes to game seven, the Flyers are suddenly in this whole world of trouble. So it was even more important to stand tall. And then when you consider the way the Flyers offense has been in this series, it's like you need these tight games as much as possible because who's to say if they'll get two goals? Last night, you are only getting one. So yeah, he definitely had a really strong outing. And I think it's a good bounce back. He wasn't perfect last game. I think it seemed like the arm injury kind of messed with him the game prior. So yeah, good. Definitely good on Vladar this game.
Yeah, early in the series, I felt like one of the big stories, in addition to the energy level, the speed, but I really felt like it was just like the Flyers' structure was giving the Penguins fits, and the Penguins did not really know how to play that game or weren't ready to play that game with the Flyers at first. But especially as the series goes on, and as the game goes on, you're like the Penguins look pretty comfortable now playing this game. And you wonder if there's an adjustment that Dan Muse made, the Penguins made, if they just kind of found their way into the series. But they looked like a team that if that got to a game seven in their building, like it was very possible we were going to be looking at a reverse sweep, the rare reverse sweep. So for Philly to come out of that, I think speaks really well to how they hung in there. And they, I think Carolina was going to be a prohibitive favorite against anyone who came out of this. I don't know that we're giving Philly like a huge chance in that series, but I give them a lot of props for what they did. And who knows? I didn't give them a whole lot of a chance in the Pittsburgh series coming in either.
No, honestly, I didn't either because it felt like the Flyers have been playing playoff games for the last, month and a half here. And as much as they do have veteran talent, they also have a lot of young players that
Yeah.
you could have seen them hitting a wall at any time. And if they were to drop 3 straight games to Pittsburgh to go to game seven, it's like, okay, maybe that wall just came up now, which is reasonable, right? The adrenaline runs out, or, you finally stop playing past the sum of all their parts, which they've been doing for so long. So I didn't have them winning this series, but they own their brand of hockey. Like they came in, the best thing they could have done in this series was they made game circuses and leaned into it. And I think that just aggravated the Penguins. So it's like, yeah, they're not going to be the favorite in this next series either. The Canes were a stronger favorite than the Penguins from the start. And now the Canes are rested and probably getting a lot healthier. Plus, you look at, the depth of that team, right? They play that shutdown defensive style, but they also have an overwhelming offense. And the Flyers really only have one side of that equation. So yeah, we're rightfully going to take the Canes in the series. But the fact that the Flyers are here is such an accomplishment. The fact that they battled through that series to end it in six, I think is massive for them too. It's not just riding this emotional wave that they were doing. It's adjusting and tweaking and doing enough to keep this season alive, even when the going's got a little bit tough there.
Yeah, absolutely. And really, we'll see what happens in that Philly Carolina series. But I'm curious going forward for both of the two teams that were in this series, Pittsburgh and Philly. Like, what does this season mean for how they proceed? Because I think these were two of the few kind of rebuilding-ish teams coming in, or certainly the Penguins I thought were one of the few bona fide rebuilding teams coming in. They're now both playoff teams. The Flyers are going to go at least to the second round, and maybe, who knows, a little further. How does what happened this season for both Pennsylvania teams affect their future outlook for you? Are they both? Do they both still enter next year as kind of fringy rebuilding types, or do you view either of them now as like this is a team that expects and should be in the playoffs?
I'm going to say fringy rebuilding types for both, but in different directions, right? Because the Flyers have surprisingly been in the playoff mix for the last few years and then fallen short. I think management's done a really good job of not being blinded by, some spurts of success in the regular season to go off the rails. They've stayed on track with the process no matter what the team's done. And I think we could see them, I expect to see a measured approach taken again this offseason with that in mind, right? Like they're not going to just say, hey, we made it to the playoffs. Now let's start adding veterans and just completely fall apart. Like that, I don't think that's happening here. So I think they expect to still be in the playoff race next year, and we'll see where that goes. For Pittsburgh, it's a completely different energy, right? Because coming into this postseason, I feel like it could have gone two ways. It was either last dance of all the veterans or end of an era. You tried, you failed, move on. And it feels like we're getting the latter here. The fact that they extended the series, yes, that's a good thing. It's better than, I don't know, being swept, because then it's like, wow, that really crashed and burned. It's not working. But at the end of the day, they lost in round one. And while they didn't do anything too splashy this season to just start buying up players and, at the risk of the future, like, I think Kyle Dubas had a great approach to the season and a lot of moves. You see the future of it, right? Like adding Sam Girard, the Stuart Skinner trade, investing in Chinnikov and other reclamation projects, like all of that. I see the vision, and they can keep doing that for another year. But I wonder at a certain point if it's like, okay, it's that plus a little bit more aggression to get younger and really turn the page, because it just didn't work. And if you couldn't capitalize off this season that was so good, when are you going to do it?
I'm of the mind that they're going to need a really high pick at some point. Like they did extremely well in this past draft, getting Ben Kindle, getting Will Horkoff. Two guys who I think probably go higher if the draft was held today. Kindle certainly is going higher than he did if the draft was held today. But I think you just need that top 5 pick at some point. The problem is always going to be, can you commit a season to that when you have Sidney Crosby? Can you even really be bad enough to have that? I mean, that's one of my takeaways right now with Sidney Crosby. And like you said, some of these reclamation projects, I mean, I don't think they're getting another 33 goal year from Anthony Mantha kind of thing next year, but who knows? Maybe they bring him back, maybe they don't. But they've, like you said, they've invested in the Chinnikovs. Elmer Soderblom is a guy who I covered in Detroit for the last few years. I think he looks like a better player in Pittsburgh. And you saw spurts of it in Detroit, but they've gotten more of it so far in Pittsburgh, and they may be able to keep finding guys like that. So it's an interesting one to handicap, because I think they need to have a true lottery type pick at some point to set themselves up for the future. But I think as long as you have Crosby, and if you're making shrewd GM moves as Kyle Dubas has continued to make, it'll be interesting, because I think they can kind of hover a little bit. Now, goaltending a question, and we'll see what happens with their big core. I'll leave that one for the people who know Pittsburgh a little bit better. But let's move to another series in the East. Montreal and Tampa, another excellent game. This has been, for me, the best series of the first round. Every game is just pins and needles. And once again, Montreal finds a way and finds a way through their depth last night, Shayna.
Yeah, Montreal, I think, has been one of the most exciting teams this postseason. And I think going into this, we knew, like, here's two similar teams, right? Like, it's Tampa Bay, the contender we all know and have seen for the last, 10 years now. And here's Montreal, this up and coming team in their second postseason. And they show a lot of stylistic similarities to Tampa Bay. But at the end of the day, it's, one team's a little more battle tested here, experienced. And also, you saw potential pitfalls with Montreal, right? Like, they play a little bit looser defensively. And now they're without Noah Dobson, who handles the shutdown minutes, which allows Lane Hudson to just cook. So you could have seen where things could have gone south for Montreal. And instead, they come in with a ton of jump. They've been so exciting, even without the big gun scoring. That top line, Cirelli has done a great job slowing down that. Cirelli and Gord, both of them against the Suzuki line, have really stopped them from being the difference that we know them to be. And yet, Montreal keeps having answers. They're getting scoring from their third line. Brendan Gallagher comes back into the lineup and scores last night. The fourth line has been incredibly productive throughout this series. And you just see Hudson taking over games at times and Dobish coming up big. I think, like, the biggest thing out of this, that is the biggest surprise, I should say, out of all of this, is that Tampa Bay's offense has not been really strong at 5-on-5. And that's the key here. It's Montreal shutting them down. I think we would have expected it to go the other way, right? Like, it's just that Montreal is creating more offense than Tampa, and that's how they're in this position. Instead, it's Montreal actually clamping down on a team like the Lightning. The big guns not doing enough for Tampa Bay. Kucherov's been good, but he has another level. Braden Point has another level. Obviously, they're missing Hedman. And Vasilevsky has been fine, but not good enough. Not playoff Vasi that we know from years past. Put it all together, they're behind in the series. And it's completely fascinating what they're going to do here, because I can see them coming out with just fueled by spite, ready to clamp it down, to just push back against Montreal, make it interesting to Game 7. But Montreal going back to Montreal with the buzz, with the juice of ending it in regulation, especially. Like, I feel like they've built themselves a ton of momentum here.
If you had told me to kind of tell a story coming into this series about how it was going to go, For me, it would have gone something like this: like the point, Kucherov, Gensel are going to kind of trade blows and cancel out the Caulfield, Suzuki, Slavkovsky, right? And then it's from there. What do you have? And I like Montreal's kind of bottom checkers, but it was in that middle, your Sorellis, your Gourds, like Bjorkstrand, whatever. Like I felt like Tampa had the clear edge there, and that they would just get a little bit more from the middle of their lineup than to tilt the series. Instead, what's happened is I think those top lines have canceled each other out, but not in the way that I envisioned. Instead, it has been a bunch of guys like Anthony Cirelli has lived on my Selke ballot in recent years. Yanni Gourde and Nick Suzuki are both on it this year. The top lines are canceling each other out by checking it through these first 5 games of this series, and it has been the depth deciding it, but it's gone Montreal's way. Texier's been excellent. Josh Anderson had a couple big goals early in the series. Kirby Doc shows up with a huge goal last night. Like Montreal is showing that not only can their guys down the lineup check, they can produce in playoff type moments. And that's been, in the difference has been slight. Every game's been a 1-goal game here, but it's been just slight enough in Montreal's favor.
Yeah, I mean, Doc has done a little bit of everything in this series,
yeah.
and to rebound after making mistakes, to getting the trust from the coaches to stay in the lineup and keep getting, deployed out there, and he's delivered. That's obviously massive. Josh Anderson loves playing the Tampa Bay Lightning. You go back to the Columbus years when the Blue Jackets upset, this legendary Lightning team. It's Josh Anderson playing disruptor in it. So that's massive because, yeah, we're seeing some things from Slavkovsky. He has the big game one. Yeah, we've seen some moments from Demidov, but not enough. It's the bottom six, and I don't think anyone saw that coming because you look at Montreal last year in the playoffs, and, obviously it's a different team. They're a little bit younger than too, a little less experienced, but it's the top line. It's Caulfield, it's Suzuki, it's Lane Hudson carrying that team into the postseason, and they're the only ones making their mark in round one. So it's definitely encouraging to see that the Canadians are getting contributions up and down the lineup. But obviously, if they're going to move on here, they're going to need more. But you look at Tampa Bay, like their side of the equation on it, and the fact that those lines are canceling each other out, I think it's been interesting to see how they've tweaked Kucherov's usage through these games too, of whether he plays with Point or whether he plays with Cirelli. And I feel like the Cirelli combination is a little bit more favorable here. And I would just be putting that line out over and over again in game 6 to try to extend the series because I think they've had a little bit more juice together. I don't think Braden Point has been as noticeable. It's been an up and down year. It feels like every time he gained traction, he got hurt again. Once he finally got it together after a slow start to the year. But I think maybe just spreading the wealth a little bit would help because guys like Hagel are performing. And I think Gensel, especially, he's doing more damage on the power play than even strength. But you need Kucherov to be your guy. And the same's going to go for Montreal at some point. They're going to need Caulfield to score more. But if they can get by one more game with those bottom 6 contributions and just, use their big guns to cancel out Tampa Bay's best, that's something. And I'm really curious how it's going to look when Dobson comes back because while forwards and defensemen have different responsibilities, Dobson is the one that takes on the heaviest matchups for Montreal. It's allowed that top 6 to flourish more. It's allowed the top 4 on the back end to flourish more, just having that separation of deployment. And I think there's more on Suzuki's plate because he doesn't have Dobson on the back end, because it's a weaker pair in those minutes. So I wonder how much too that'll help open him up moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's get to the late game from last night too, because this was another one back and forth. This has been a good series. Another one last night, back and forth. When Utah does not score on the 4-minute power play, down a goal, I'm thinking, all right, well, that was your chance. You had a great opportunity and you didn't get it. Then Dylan Guenther scores. Then they take a lead. Vegas comes back, ties it late, and in a double overtime game, it's Brett Howden on the winner. Vegas has unkillable vibes right now.
Yeah, absolutely they do, because it feels like Vegas, every time Utah gets some momentum these last 2 games, Vegas has crushed it. And that's kind of what happened in game 1 too, right? Like we saw Utah come out with a ton of speed, third period, Vegas looks like the experienced team. They start forechecking more, they win that game. And the last 2 games, it's these great comebacks by Utah, a ton of resilience. The power play for Utah has been a killer, and yet they're managing, right? It feels like the shifts after the power play, which should be so deflating, they're actually coming up bigger than expected, and they're starting to take a little bit more control. Those 2-2-on-1s from Utah in the third period, Vegas can't defend them. They don't have the speed on the back end to manage it either. And Utah just keeps extending these games to overtime only to fall short with shorthanded goals of all things. To take so many penalties is risky enough because while Vegas hasn't had the best luck on the power play, I think they're giving them too much time to get it together. And then they're not building enough momentum from their own advantages. So it just feels like Vegas, as cliche as it is, they're the battle tested team. They've been here before and they look like it.
There's so many peripherals in this series would suggest that Vegas should be down or should be vulnerable, right? I mean, the goaltending question not going away. The 2C question, like you have this big expensive addition in Mitch Marner and you're playing him out of position as your 2C because Tomas Hertl hasn't been right, because you don't have William Karlsson, whatever. Like there's so many things that if you told me them before the season or before the series even, I'd be like, yeah, I just don't see how it's going to. You can't have all those things going wrong and find a way, but they are doing just that. They're finding a way. That's what experience does for you. And I don't know. What do you think? Mammoth stretches to 7? It's going to be a home ice. I mean, that building's been rocking.
I could see them stretching it to 7. I'm hopeful that they do because I think that would be more interesting. And I think Vegas, the foot speed issue and the goaltending issue is what opens the door to it. But the Golden Knights are like getting hot at the right time. Like Jack Eichel wasn't as noticeable last night, but his game 4 I thought was just fantastic. And now Dorofeev has found his scoring touch. And even Hertl makes a great play to set up Dorofeev. And I feel like he's had a pretty rough series at times and kind of an underwhelming regular season now. And it goes back to last postseason. I don't think he was good enough for them. So it feels like the pieces are coming together for Vegas to just end this in 6. But I could see Utah, being resilient once more, dragging it out, and then I don't know who would win in that game. I still am leaning Vegas, even though I picked Utah at the beginning of the series. And I think these overtimes might be a problem too, because at times Utah does look a little bit gassier. And it's just, you have to have the stamina if you're going to play this rush game to do it for potentially 80 minutes, 90 minutes. And, that's one thing going into it that could be a problem.
Dorofeev and Barbashev to me are 2 guys for Vegas who they just kind of seem to find the net. And if those guys are going, I think I like Vegas's odds against most teams. If you can keep those guys quiet, you give yourself a chance because you know who you need to kind of isolate on otherwise. But with Dorofeev's on, they're a hard team to beat. All right, let's now stay in the West and let's go to a series that continues tonight, tomorrow. The Edmonton Oilers and the Anaheim Ducks. Let's bring in Sean Gentille, who's been covering that series for us at The Athletic.
It's tonight, buddy. Bad news.
I don't know what day it is, Sean.
Me neither. All I know is that there is a hockey game in Anaheim tonight, and I flew 11 hours yesterday to get to it, or whatever it was. So yes, it is today.
All right, Thursday night. How about that? We'll go with that. My issue is knowing what day I'm in more so than what day they're in.
It's that time of year, brother. It happens.
The Oilers, they fight. Rousing start to that last game.
Mm-hmm.
They show a lot of fight. They're going to get up off the mat here. My question for you is, do you feel like they can repeat this enough times? Because we're talking about it in the Utah-Vegas series where there's enough kind of indicators on Vegas that should be scary, and they're finding a way to do it. There's a lot of scary indicators for the Edmonton Oilers too. Anaheim's found a way more times than not, though, to stave those off.
Yeah, I think if you see the Edmonton Oilers, the lead. It's such a cliche, but if they're playing with a lead, I think they have a chance, and I think that's sort of dictated the run of that game a couple days ago, where they get 3 first period goals, you get Vasily Podkolzin with a big one to start things off, and Ingram's playing well down the stretch in that first period. That's huge, and I think that kind of colored everything that came after it. Because the 5-on-5 numbers, though, for the rest of that game were not good. I mean, it's an instance of Edmonton's. Some of it, to some degree, it's Edmonton playing with the lead and trying to, avoid disaster and, pushing Anaheim to the perimeter. Like we saw a lot of that, but also I think mixed in there is the fact that Anaheim is a more effective 5-on-5 team than they are at this point, just across the board. So I think there is some degree of sustainability there. I think they played well, even though some of the shot metrics and the expected goals don't quite reflect that. And I think the biggest thing that they found in that game was 2 scoring lines. Like what we'd seen in the first 4 games was, it was Draisaitl, it was Podkolzin, and it was Kasperi Kapanen and 5-on-5 and not really anything else. Well, Knoblauch throws that into a blender, moves Draisaitl back up with McDavid, which, paid off to some degree because they did connect for a 5-on-5 goal there. But man, it seems like they stumbled on something with Nugent Hopkins and Podkolzin, and it's in Nugent Hopkins, Bud Colson, and Zach Hyman. My God, I almost forgot Zach Hyman's name. That's where we're at here. So they have two lines rolling for the first time in this series, and I think that's a big deal, and that's the single biggest reason I think they could, extend this a bit further.
So Jackson Lacombe's becoming a big name in this series. He's been crushing the matchup game against McDavid. Part of it's because McDavid's hurt. Part of it is that he's also really good and really good in all three zones. And it's a totally different realm of matchup than we've seen, right? Like they're going with someone who actually plays in all three zones instead of just trying to slow down McDavid, which you're not going to be able to do. From my viewpoint, I thought that he was much better in those matchups on home ice. And now series shifts back to Anaheim. Anaheim's back in control, but it's Draisaitl and McDavid. Like, what do you think we're going to see tonight from that matchup?
I think the matchup game's honestly been kind of interesting. It was just across the board. Like it was something that Quenneville wasn't super interested in at the start of it. Like he wasn't going out of his way to change things in when they didn't have last change, which is kind of funny. And I think it's not a coincidence that in those Anaheim games, I think you saw them walk into a couple solid situations, and it certainly starts with Lacombe. Someone asked Draisaitl about him a few days ago, and they framed it as comparing him with Makar, right? And I think that was sort of the implication is Lacombe that kind of player, and Draisaitl didn't mean it as a knock. Like he wasn't trying to neg Jackson Lacombe, but what he said was he's a different player than Makar, because Makar you have to be completely aware of where he is at any given moment because of the offensive stuff. In Lacombe's case, which I said, he's like he never makes the wrong decision. Like he's in the right spot all the time. Yeah, he's a great skater and he's got a ton of skill, but also like he's got the necessary bit that allows him to be in the right place at the right time. And I think that kind of reflects itself, for sure, in what we've seen from him in all three zones. Absolutely.
There's just kind of a magic factor to him on some plays too. I mean, the defensive one where he whips the stick around to break up the 2-on-1. It's like, how does he do now? Draisaitl got one over on him early in the series as well,
sure,
right? On the blow by. But Jackson Lacombe looks charmed.
Like whatever. That goal, by the way, like
Yeah.
he played some bully ball there, and he had Leo Carlsson hanging on his back too. Like it's so like that's the way it goes. That's Leon Draisaitl. Like he's done it. He's done it to players as good as Jackson Lacombe. That's for sure.
But it's the fun part of the series to me is that a lot of these names, especially when we're talking out west, right? And there's some of these guys that the broader hockey public is not seeing on a nightly basis, right? Jackson Lacombe's an Olympian, and we don't really see him in the Olympics, right? So a lot of the young Ducks especially have this kind of going for him right now. Leo Carlsson has an element of this. Beckett Seneca has an element of this. Cutter Gauthier, because of the goal scoring, I think people were a little more aware of. But that's the fun part is this Ducks core's real introduction to, I think, the broader NHL fan base.
I think the fun thing about the Ducks is that they pop. Like they're good they're good for casual fans. They're good for people who are maybe watching them the first time. Like you watch that team, you know who the good guys are, right? Like you know who their best players are. Carlsson plays aesthetically fun hockey. Cutter Gauthier, like we love the goal scoring totals, but also that guy is a shot production machine. Like that's where it starts with him. The amount of pucks that guy puts on the net at any given time are wild, right? And you have Lacombe. Yes, he's positionally sound, but also he is doing Makar walk the blue line, stuff like that. Beckett Seneca, he's my God, he's a chaos machine out there. Like he is so fun to watch. And when that kid grows into, he's already a good player. When he grows into his body in 2 years, 3 years down the line, he's gonna be something else, right? So you know who the stars are when you watch this team, and I think that's got to be fun. For people who are just getting exposed to them for the first time, like we've seen them. We got to watch these games, but even me watching them for 11 days now or however long it's been, I'm enjoying them on a different level as well.
There's something about a series too with that. I mean, it's you see them against not just the same guys, the same all world guys, and that's very fun.
100%. Now they're I think. It's tough to blow a 3-1 lead. I think that's good for them. I think that's good for them right now. I think there were incremental changes, like we talked about earlier, like incremental moves forward for Edmonton in that last game that, from the outside, if you're if you're rooting for the Ducks, maybe you're getting a little bit nervous. It seemed like Edmonton was closer to getting right in that last game than they've seen in quite some time. But yeah, it's been fun.
Do you think they have a lot of pop because this is a total chaos series with no defense? Like, are we going to see semi-competent defense tonight? Is tonight the night that we see it? Because it feels like, Lacombe's defending well. And we've seen, I think Jake Wallman came up with some pretty big plays last game. But generally speaking, it's a lot of scoring and some
I
goal
thought,
ending.
okay, so my thought on the last game, and we mentioned this before, but shot clock expected goals like way tilted in favor of Anaheim in that last game, despite the score. I do think that there was some, especially after that first period, there was some amount of chaos that was lost because Edmonton, who had been a complete disaster at the net front, Bouchard, Wallman, to a lesser degree, maybe Darnell Nurse, they're making huge high profile mistakes, like pretty consistently. Some of them bit them, some of them didn't. I think what we saw from them, in the second, third period last game is that, okay, we're going to at least force them to the perimeter, maybe cut back on some of the rebounds. I think Connor Ingram was better with his rebound control in that game, which is kind of what killed him in game 3. So is this a chaos series? Absolutely. Is this the chaos series of the first round? Absolutely. But I think, there's been incremental gains made by Edmonton if they're trying to cut back on it. So that's the thing I would watch out. I would watch out for there. Don't necessarily look at the shot totals. Look at how many are screened or tipped or whatever, because that was what was killing. That was what was killing them in that 3-game stretch where they lost.
One way or another, Sean's getting on a plane tomorrow. Sean, where will that plane be heading?
I haven't booked anything yet. The only thing I know is that the flight will be long, and there will be at least one layover, because that's the world we're living in right now.
All right, no prediction from Sean, but we'll let him go on that. Great stuff, Sean. Thanks for doing this.
Ducks 7, Oilers 5. There's my prediction.
All right,
we're going full chaos, baby. Let's go.
Love it. Thanks, Sean.
See you guys.
All right, Shayna, let's wrap with this. You did a great story earlier this week on The Athletic, and we can stay with this series to begin it, because the story was what young NHL players can learn from their playoff opponents, superstar playoff opponents. And basically the conceit, and I love this, is we have some series that pit a young emerging star against a guy who looks like a perfect world version of what they could become. Is Leo Carlsson ever going to get to Leon Draisaitl's physical size? Maybe not. But there's, in terms of the cerebral play, the two-way force, the ability to kind of break out a wicked shot despite being potentially one of the better playmaking big-bodied centers in the world, there is some aspiration to what Leo Carlsson can look at Leon Draisaitl and find.
Yeah, Carlsson will definitely have to put on a little bit of weight, a lot of bit of muscle if he wants to compete with the frame of Leon Draisaitl. I feel like it's almost like, I hate using the word underrated because it feels like it's me saying like, I know something you don't. But I feel like his size is something that doesn't get enough hype, because Draisaitl's strength is such an important part of his attack. And I think that is what Carlsson should be learning from this series, is what you can do when you use your frame to your advantage. And it's funny because that game-winning goal that Draisaitl comes in, powers through the offensive zone, past Carlsson, past Lacombe, was what kind of inspired me to do this story. Because earlier this year, I was going to do a best worst case scenario of Leo Carlsson, and Draisaitl came up as one of his early comps. Yep. And then as the Ducks went through it in December, and they went through it, and some of the two-way play dropped, there was a little more separation in similarity score between these players at the same age. So I kind of just put it to the back burner, and then you see Carlsson get back on track. But here it is in this moment of, this is one of the things that separates these two players, and this is something Carlsson can learn. So even if Carlsson and the Ducks take out the Oilers and upset them in the first round, there's still elements he should be studying. And that's a big part of it, because you look at so many zone entries from Leon Draisaitl, the way he just goes in with such power, or he's protecting the puck with one hand, holding it pretty far away from his body and using his other arm to hold off defenders. It's something I think that could take Carlsson's game to the next level, because Draisaitl really has become this all three zone threat. If he killed penalties, he'd probably get on more Selke ballots. And I think that's a big reason why. So you see the makings to becoming this total superstar, and he has the skill set to become it. To be the next Draisaitl, it's tough because that's a top 3 forward in this league. But if he could become that true franchise or MVP caliber center, and I think he does have the raw tools to do it, he should be studying Draisaitl to see what he can emulate from him to get to that next level.
Yeah, and that's what I love about the premise of this is like we always talk about guys needing to get into the playoffs and learning, and these are valid things, learning how to win, learning what it feels like to play in these tight games. But it's also just a really great opportunity to play against the guy that you basically want to become or should become or hope to become. And getting to see, getting to feel. I mean, he was one of the guys on that play that we talked about with Sean that Draisaitl just bodies through, right? Well, now Leo knows what that feels like and how hard that was for him to defend. It's lived experience. Let's go through some more of these. Like you had a few really good examples here. Ivan Demidov in Montreal and Nikita Kucherov, obviously, right? Like Nikita Kucherov is one of one, but when you look at Demidov's playmaking and the way that he can kind of control a game, he can draw defenders in. This is what Nikita Kucherov is aces at, and this is what Ivan Demidov can become.
Yeah, like Nikita Kucherov doesn't always get the same credit as McDavid or McKinnon because he doesn't play the game with a ton of pace. But he's someone that controls the pace of game. And it's so impressive how he does it. He's so methodical. He's such a smart player. And he's such a strong player, too. How he lifts sticks and gets defenders out of the way to get the puck in the first place. And the way he just starts operating from there, right? You never know what he's going to do. He's so deceptive. He can be slipping passes to everyone. He can be taking the shots himself. And you see the difference in the series, even though we're not getting top-level Kucherov. There's that power play goal in, game 4, Kucherov, I think, had 6 puck touches leading up to the goal. He's creating so much space. Everything's going through him. And yet you still can't defend him properly. And that's something, we're not seeing Demidov take over on power play 1 just yet. And yes, Montreal has a lot of other threats, right? Cole Caulfield tends to be the guy there. Slavkovsky's had his moments on the power play. You can't forget about Nick Suzuki. So it's going to be a shared responsibility. Plus you have Lane Hudson, but it's not like Tampa Bay's power play isn't completely loaded either, right? Like over the years. And Kucherov still feels like he's low-key the quarterback of everything because everything runs through him. And the other thing that I think is super noticeable is the difference in how much they shoot the puck, right? Because Kucherov, we all think of him for his passing, rightfully so, but what makes him so dangerous is you have no idea if he's going to move the puck or if he's just going to rip a shot. And he has a great shot when he chooses to use it. He's shooting the puck way more than Demidov, which is probably the biggest gap in his game right now. You watch him in the regular season and go, okay, look at these amazing cross-seam passes and look at how he's drawing all the defenders to him. And Oliver Kapanen has all the space in the world when they're playing together. Slavkovsky, he was setting up, but he doesn't take enough shots. And at times this year when Slavkovsky was on his line and he's had a ton of high danger passes this year, you saw Demidov opening up a little bit, becoming more of a dual threat. But in this series, he's not shooting the puck nearly enough. And that's something that will add less predictability to his game because as much as you don't know when he's going to pass it, how he's going to pass it, because he's just creating passing lanes himself all shift long, it would be nice to see that he actually might trick opponents completely and shoot the puck himself. Like, I think that's where you see getting a little harder to play against and adding a little bit more dimension could take his game from good to great.
Yeah, absolutely. Logan Cooley was an interesting one here because I don't know if it's the skating and the fact that he played for the NTDP or what. I've always kind of thought of him on somewhere on the Jack Hughes continuum and maybe a little bit James Hagen's in the same vein as these really great skating forwards that have come out of the program, smaller side. But I think, and Cooley and Hagen certainly I think go to the net a lot. But you had a different comp on him and it's Jack Eichel. And the more that Cooley grows into a well-rounded player, I buy this. I mean, Jack Eichel's on my Selke ballot this year. I won't say where just yet. I don't know that Logan Cooley is going to get to that level, but he is going to be able to be deployed in absolutely all situations. He's a tough player. He's a fast player. He just has a ton going for him, and you say he can learn more from Jack Eichel.
Yeah, as is, this is a great player off the rush. I mean, he had more scoring chance off the rush this season, I think, according to all 3 zones tracking at 5-on-5. And, he scores a ton of goals without shooting the puck as much. He's thrived on the power play. And that's all stuff Jack Eichel did in those early years. The difference is Jack Eichel just kept leveling up. And it was tough to see at times in Buffalo, right? Because the team was so bad. But he started playmaking a little bit more, moving the puck. So it's not just that he's, transporting it up the ice, but he's setting his teammates up consistently in the offensive zone. And he got better defensively in Buffalo, actually. But when he went to Vegas, he completely leveled up, became this all situation threat. He's, used in shutdown minutes. He kills penalties. And that's really goes along with league trends too, of having more offensive players in shorthanded situations. And you go, okay, Cooley's skill set is similar to that. And you can see the similarities there, and you could see how he could follow that path. But it's a little bit different here. Like, if you're Logan Cooley and you become the next Jack Eichel and you become this well-rounded threat, you still have to make sure your offense pops enough. And that was something when we did player tiers this year, the criticism of Jack Eichel was, does he not prioritize offense enough? And you go back to the year he wins the Stanley Cup. I think he should have won the Conn Smythe because he was the straw that stirs the drink. He's setting up everybody, but the goal scorer always gets more credit here. You go fast forward to last year's postseason, he's matched up against McDavid, and he had to play a little bit more defensively. And in the early goings of this series too, he's getting a lot of matchups against Cooley, and he's having to defend that speed instead of playing to his strengths. Well, game 4, Jack Eichel, you see what makes him so special. And I think that was that he still has the offensive chops to be the guy, but you have to keep that balance. And that'll be really important for Cooley to keep in mind. Even if your role changes, your natural gifts lean towards this, offensive game. So keep leaning in.
I had so much fun with this one. I mean, I was trying to think of more that I could throw at you when we did this segment, right? But like a lot of them are kind of already there. I think Jake Sanderson is already kind of at the level with Jacob Slavin and has surpassed him offensively. And I was trying to think there has to be like a Buffalo defenseman that we could do something with a Lindholm or a McAvoy on Boston. But the profiles don't really overlap perfectly. It's much more of like a puck moving kind of flavor, I think, to the Buffalo defense core. But I would read 10 of these if you have 10 more in you, because I really enjoyed it. So
I hope we get more in round 2.
Yes,
I tried.
Absolutely.
I really tried. I was like, Nature's and Panarin. I'm like, Nature's already, like coming together. And Sanderson already moves the puck more. And, could Owen Power be like Hampus Lindholm? I'm like, I might be stretching it. And Dovish and Vasi because their size. I was like, you know what? Let's stick with the 3. And let's see if anything comes up next round, because it does feel like we had the similarities, like team-wise, Canes to Ottawa and Lightning to Montreal. So having the player-to-player, I really hope there's more of these.
Great piece. Highly recommend everybody check it out. Before we go today, Shane, I just want to wrap on the other game tonight, Minnesota and Dallas. And this is one that, from the beginning, I thought it would go 7. I want it to go 7. I don't think every single game has been as white knuckle as Tampa Montreal, but certainly this is the series that we all had circled coming in. Really, we've had circled for months because we saw it coming with the playoff format. This was likely going to be a 2-3. I think for the most part, it's lived up to it. You just probably want to see a little more from Dallas's stars.
Yep, you want to see more from Dallas Stars, specifically at 5-on-5. They're getting outscored 11-3 at 5-on-5. And, I think Robertson is the one forward you can kind of take out of the conversation, like you're doing it. And that was true in the regular season too, because last postseason, Dallas' 5-on-5 offense dries up, starts the year, it's the same thing. And Robertson is the one that kind of was breaking through the most. And in November and in December, you were seeing it. That's how the Dallas Stars got back on track at 5-on-5. It was Jason Robertson. Okay, now everyone else needs to step up. Like, Wyatt Johnston can be one of the best scoring chance generators on this Dallas Stars teams. Got to do it more at 5-on-5. Mikko Rantanen has not been noticeable enough at 5-on-5, and you're seeing weaker shots get through. And just, Wallsted's doing well. He's stopping what comes his way, but I don't think they're challenging him enough. And, I don't think they're forechecking enough. I don't think they're driving to the scoring areas. So the bottom 6 isn't going to do it for Dallas. With Matt Duchene playing in the top 6, you don't have enough scoring pop in that bottom 6. And that's where the Hintz injury really crushes them. So I think it's up to the big guns to be the big guns. And we know, Johnston and Rantanen have that big game ability. Robertson's been doing it all series. This is the moment to do it. And the Brodin injury, I think, opens the door to it a bit, because Brodin and Spurgeon don't generate much offense in their minutes, but they've done a good job all year kind of keeping things as calm as possible in their minutes. So without him, the whole depth chart's out of sorts. So this is the Stars' moment to take advantage of it, but they really haven't done it so far.
I'll say this, and like, it's easier said than done. This Minnesota team is loaded with stars. They can generate great offense. Getting Zuccarello back is huge for them. Loaded. Quinn Hughes, Brock Faber, Matt Boldy, Kirill Kaprizov, like enough said. If I'm the Dallas Stars, I kind of want Jake Oettinger to steal me at least one game in this series for what the contract is. He's in that group of goalies who I think are you would call the bankable goalies, but that's what I need from someone in that tier. I need them to steal me a game probably on the road. I mean, this one is on the road, but that's kind of what you want ideally, is you want them to go get you in a series, go steal me a road game, and we'll do the rest. Tonight's the night for Jake Ottinger. If it's coming, it's got to be tonight.
Yeah, I think sometimes the Ottinger stuff gets overhyped, like, oh, he doesn't have the playoff pedigree, and I think he's been fine in this series, but there's also been some weak goals, and I think last game it's the McCarron goal. You're like, okay, it just looked like Ottinger wasn't confident enough in that situation. He misplays it. Like, that's when he should have stopped. So you can't have that tonight. You can't afford it, especially when you're not getting goal support, right? Like, that's the biggest problem for the Dallas Stars right now. But at the end of the day, you need your big guys to be your big guys. So if Rantanen can't come to play the way that they need him to, you need it that Ottinger keeps, as many pucks out of the net so the Stars can get away with a 1-0 or a 2-1 winner, something in that situation. He has to be their guy. And for all of the reasons, right? Like, the coaching staff didn't pull him in game 1 when that could have happened. Like, I think they've done a lot to make sure, like, hey, you are our guy. Here's the confidence you need. So now he has to reward them with that, with a really strong game, because Wallsted's been good. He hasn't had to be fantastic, but he's been the better, better, more reliable goalie at times in the series. Like, you're right. Sometimes you just need your stars to be your stars.
Yeah, I mean, in both of them, I don't think Ottinger's been bad in this series. I don't think Rantanen's been bad in this series. He's gotten his points. I mean, they haven't been at even strength, but he's gotten them. But when you're paid like a building block, when the team is clearly geared around you being able to do what you do, and I think that you have to deliver. And I think that's just as true of Ottinger as it is in Rantanen tonight. But it should be a very good one. That is going to do it for us. Thanks for listening to this episode of the Athletic Hockey Show. Some big games on tap. I'm sure we'll have much more for you next week on those. Tomorrow, though, is the Prospect Series. Scott, Corey, Chris, and I are going to talk about the World U18 Championships. And spoiler alert, there is a lot of drama there. A lot of the big guns out of that tournament early. We've got some draft talk too as well. So that'll do it for us. We'll talk to you then. Bye. Thanks for watching. Make sure to like and subscribe and ring the bell to stay informed and catch new episodes every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And in the meantime, you can join our Discord community. We'll see you there.